Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It gives me great pleasure. This is Anirudh from WiTalks on yet another session of WiTalks, which is nothing but our bi-monthly Leadership Connects, which we bring to you with great regularity. Today evening, it is my privilege to bring forth Sonal Sharda. Sonal is the global head and the global lead for talent management for Amdocs. She is also the lead for organizational development, i.e., she heads the vertical on organizational development for Amdocs. And she has more than 20 years of experience. 10 of those years split across, two stints have been with Amdocs. She's worked with Ericsson. She has taken a career break. And now here is the big one. She's actually served the Indian Army, nothing less, and that too for over a decade. So I'm quite sure that she is someone who, there she is smiling, right? Does she look like an army colonel, major, captain to you? You wouldn't believe it, right? But it's true. Sonal, a very, very warm welcome to the show.
Thank
So
you.
there are so many aspects of Sonal. If I just start talking about it, I fear I will eat up a lot of viewer time. But I'll try and be brief. So she joined the army, met her husband in the army, quit the army because in those days, you were not allowed to sort of stay away and sort of some of the more sort of progressive policies were not there in the Indian Army at that point in time. So she took a break. She decided to pursue her master's in social work. She did her certification as an executive coach, and then she worked with Ericsson. And when it was her husband's time to sort of come back, probably closer to where she works now, which is Delhi NCR, Amdocs reached out to her, not the other way around, and wanted to know whether she'd come back. In her earlier avatar, she used to handle learning and development for the India geography. Now, as I mentioned before, she's the global lead for talent management. A very warm welcome to the show, Sonal. I
Thank you.
understand that she's also an animal lover because I've heard some dogs bark in the background. So that was not planned. That's completely extempore. A very warm welcome, Sonal.
Thank you,
Okay,
Anirudh.
so
Thank you.
yeah, so let me begin with the questions because I'm sure our viewers are sort of eager to hear more from you. So we'll begin with leadership style. Much talked about. So when it comes to leadership style, do you have a particular leadership style that you follow? And I would want to understand this more in the context of conflicts and conflict resolution. So let me begin.
Yeah.
Over to you, so.
Thank you. Anirudh, it's it's a tough question, and it's difficult to say that you follow a leadership style in you know across all conflicts, because every conflict is unique. I think it depends on the situation. It depends on what the conflict is about and what is at stake. Uh, but I very much follow the nonviolent communication model by Marshall Rosenberg. He's one of my gurus. It's also called compassionate communication or collaborative communication. So I'm not sure I follow a certain style, but I really do adopt what's needed at the moment. More of an adaptive leadership approach, and something that really resonates with me is servant leadership. Leadership is really about serving a cause, a purpose, your team, your country. So for me, leadership is really about serving. So if I had to give a label, I would probably call it either servant leadership or leadership to a purpose.
Nice to hear that. What it also tells me, or it seems to suggest, is,
Yeah,
and it probably happens for the vast majority, that your leadership style must have also evolved a bit over time. Or were
very
you
much.
always the servant leader?
No, no, that's a good question and a good ask. No. So, when you're younger, you really step into the world knowing. When I joined the army after the academy, I really stepped with stars in my eyes rather than just on my shoulders. You really think you are the cat's whiskers and you know everything there is to know. And you think that leadership is all about telling people what to do and getting them to follow what you want, your path or your cause, etc. And as you grow in time and maturity, and as you get kicked around by life a bit, you really do realize that you don't know everything, and it's a good thing that you don't know everything. And good leadership begins with listening, really just active listening, hearing who you work with, who you work for, what is the purpose that you're serving. um, Listening, hearing, and I think common wisdom always is much higher than just what you bring to the table. So yes, I evolved from Miss Know It All, and this is the way to lead, to today when I think. Maybe I'll laugh at myself, another 10 years. But today, I think that the collective wisdom of the people you work with is always much better. uh, you find ways out by listening to people and knowing the many things that you don't know, knowing that you don't know, and being humble and asking.
Excellent. I think that's so nice of you to share, because many a times we see people don't ask, because frankly there is no shame in admitting
Yeah,
that at times you may not have all the answers, which in a sense,
yeah.
if we agree, is also one of the basic postulates of the newer styles of leadership that have evolved over a period of time, uh, including servant leadership. So, given that you started off in an army, were you always someone who was very confident in a crisis? Because I'm assuming that some amount of training that the army, does to you probably makes you confident in a crisis. So, and has that also changed over time?
So the army does train you. It trains you to be really thorough at what you do. It trains you for all the possible crisis that they can think of, and they equip you for the crisis that they can't predict. So yes, the army training does go a really long way um, in knowing what needs to be done. And I think what they do is they set your values in alignment with what the organization really. So when your values are aligned, a lot of times the answers are not very difficult. The situation may be new, you may not have faced it ever before, but if you know what you stand for, if you know what your values are, if you know that your country's interest comes first always and every time, that's the credo we live by, right? And then the team that you lead, the men you command, the women you command, they come next, and you come last always and every time. When you have this in order, when crisis comes, you kind of have a roadmap to walk on. So yes, the army did help me. The training helped me. I think the confidence comes from. I think I was a little crazy always. So you need a little bit of crazy to be confident always. I think the army stint, of course, helped because I spent 10 years doing things I never believed I would ever do. Was in situations, was in, with people that I never ever believed I could handle. So going through that does help. Um, I'm not sure what else goes. I think you just need to live through life, um, and have the belief that whatever comes your way, you will find a way to address it, or you will learn from it, so that if you fail once, you don't fail at the same thing in the same manner twice. So you learn and you move on. You may fail again, but you may fail in a different way.
Very nice. In fact, I was listening to you, and the following things resonated with me. So you said, yes, of course, the army did train you as it does anyone else. But then, such is their training that they also sort of train you for the unknown, or something
Yes,
that one you've not encountered before.
before.
And where yeah and where that helps, and how that is done. You said is the army looks back at the value system, and you explain that again when you're sort of commanding men or women, as the case might be. Obviously the credo of what you're wanting to achieve for the country comes first, then
Yeah,
follows the people who you lead, and your own position is always the last.
the last.
So I think, very well explained. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving forward, I started by asking about conflict management, confidence,
Yeah,
conflict management. These have been the topics that we're talking about. Now, when resolving conflicts, now
yeah.
I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, it might be a tad easier to resolve conflicts in the army, given the fact that it does follow a particular order and method, right? But how is it to sort of work in organizations like Ericsson, or now in Amdocs over a couple of
Amdocs.
stints? I'm sure there would have been instances where you would have encountered conflict, either between
Yes,
your
of
team
course.
members or with management. So, what has been your
Of course.
mantra, towards working towards that and resolving it? How do you end up resolving conflicts, A, between team members, B, with management, and how do you deal with conflict yourself? Because at times there could be inner conflicts as well.
I think what helps me, Anirudh, is that I have a compass about one. I think knowing yourself helps. Like I said, what are things that you will, which are a no go for you under any circumstance, and what are the things that you're willing to live with? What are the things that you don't mind learning or shifting or accommodating? I think if I know, if I have a premonition that yes, I'm going to step into a high conflict meeting, a high conflict situation, I try to prepare for it. I map my stakeholders. I understand who is coming in for what, right? And I also step in knowing what is it that I want to take out of this meeting. Uh, if I am clear about what are my must haves, and if I understand who is my stakeholder and what is it that they are looking for, ideally I try to not make it personal at all. There's nothing more personal than life and death, and nothing we do deals with life and deaths, otherwise. So I step in with the understanding of what is it that I want out of this meeting, and what is it that the people who may come in with a conflict, what are they looking for? My first aim is to see if I can help them achieve what they are looking for. If I can be of help, if I can address it in any manner, even if it is halfway there, partly there, fully there, I would want to address it first. So give first and seek later, is something that works, because people understand your intent, that you're coming in for a task, for a purpose, and if they need something from it, I would like to address that first and then seek what I'm seeking. This is one. And there are primarily a couple of ways that you look at conflict. One is to see if you can, what I spoke is ideal. But, one is if you're in some sort of a competition with the person, if you have competing priorities, if your role, is such that you are by nature at opposite ends, it doesn't bode well if you come in with the competing attitude, right? So come in keeping the competition aside and really looking at what how can I help this person, and how can this person help me. The other is accommodating. Is there some way that you can accommodate that person's demand, right? A third is compromise, that you win a little but you lose a little, the other person also wins a little and loses a little. Okay. So you compete, sometimes you compromise, sometimes you accommodate, and there are times when you avoid. when you know that a conflict will not do anybody any good at this point in time, and if you can avoid the situation, it's not ideal, it's not ideal, but if the circumstance is such, you avoid. The best way is to collaborate, is to see if there is any way that you can contribute to the cause, the purpose, the person, the team, the role, and if there is some way that you can gain something out of this. So if I know in advance that this meeting is going to be tough and it's going to be a conflict meeting, I try to prepare myself in advance. I map who's in the meeting, who are my stakeholders, and what can I do for them, and what can they do for me. So going prepared helps. The other thing that really, really helps, whether if it is interpersonal or it's within a role or team, is if you go in with the intent of active listening. Really, I can't tell you that I think 90% of the time, my problem gets resolved just by listening. I don't go prepared when I'm listening, is, about how am I going to react? What do I need to say? What do I need to respond? I will write what I need to, but I really, really listen. 90% of the trouble gets over when you're listening. Active listening is, I can't tell you how underrated a tool that is. Um, and if there is conflict within my team, if there are people that I work with, then I think there too, communication really is the key. um, Helping them to communicate without judging each other, if possible, really listening to what their needs are, and sharing observations, um, and sometimes even sharing feelings. In corporate, we tend to not take feelings in the right way, that that it's not very professional, but I think we're all human beings, and sometimes just hearing someone out, or hearing what the feeling is at the moment and addressing it really helps, really, really helps. So this is what I try to do. This is what my rational part of my brain does. Of course, if I'm caught by surprise by a conflict, what I try to do is try to hold on to my reaction for the time being. You know, Even if it is something that goes against what I believe or my values, what I try to do is reconfirm what I thought I heard. For instance, if you say something, and instead of jumping in to refute you, to correct you, or to pick up a fight with you, I will want to reconfirm to myself that, is this really what you said? That gives time to my monkey brain, or to my lizard brain, to calm down, and use my prefrontal cortex, to use the thinking part of my brain, to say, listen, okay, I hear what you're saying. What I understood is that this is what you said. Am I right? Did I get it wrong? And it saves you a lot of heartache and heartburn later. So at a personal level, this is what I do. I try to give myself a little breathing space. I rephrase what the other person has said, just to understand that really this is what was, to confirm my understanding. And most of the times, if someone I really want to murder at the moment, if it's that bad a conflict, I will walk away from the situation. um, I will say that, maybe I want to react to it very, very strongly, and I don't think it'll help us. Maybe we come back to this later. Maybe we speak about this in an hour. Maybe we speak about this tomorrow. Even in personal situations, uh, walking away from the trigger at the moment, I think it helps me. It helps me put things in perspective.
Wonderful.
So I
I
don't know if
think
I answered.
no, you did. You did. In fact, you spoke about active listening, and that's what I was trying very hard to practice. It was not difficult because it was indeed listening to you with attention. But for the benefit of viewers, I'd like to paraphrase a part of what I heard you say. So one is, of course, be aware of who are the stakeholders and go in prepared.
Yeah.
Second, very clearly seek to understand first before
Yes.
you wish to try and sort of explain or push your own agenda.
Correct.
The third is to, while collaboration could be the ultimate goal, try and give, because finally we are here to serve, right? So,
Yes.
and if one could give even a bit, that will make the other individual feel good of having achieved part of his or her goal, right?
Correct.
And then it
Yeah.
probably becomes just human nature. The other person is probably then willing to give in a bit as well, and that's when you come
Correct.
to sort of the compromise situation. And then finally, you spoke about avoidance, which is when you really want to avoid conflict, and that is what you believe is the right approach for the moment. Then that is probably another approach which can
Yeah.
also be used, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure you spoke about other things as well, but I wanted to summarize some of what I heard you say. And I think all of them made eminent sense to me. And therefore, I'm sure they would have made sense to our viewers as well. So thank you very much for that. Uh, so clearly, I was going to actually ask you, do you follow a particular method? So I think it is
Yeah.
apparent that you do follow a method.
Right.
Having said which, I also heard you at times you sort of stall for time, which is when you
Yeah.
paraphrase, you sort of pause and say,
Correct.
okay, did I exactly hear? Is this what you said? And
Yeah.
that probably then gives you the chance to decide how to react, whether or not to
React.
react, and whether to completely avoid for the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that was interesting. Tell me, you worked in a few organizations, and in each of these organizations and in organizations in general, they do sort of build, help their managers, their
Yes.
employees build confidence in themselves, and by doing so, it probably to an extent helps them, equips them in managing conflicts, because at times the conflict could be with the other party, not necessarily
Right.
an adversary, but let's say you
Correct.
could be, oftentimes in an organization you are negotiating, right?
Correct.
So, in these kind of situations, how do you think organizations work towards building confidence in their employees? In
You know,
your
con-
head, earlier avatar as L&D, and now you manage talent, you would have seen some of these things.
so I only manage actually I'm the talent management lead for the executive leadership. But I'll tell you, we do take these learnings very seriously. We, there is a dedicated um, effort around helping managers learn to manage conflict. Right? It's not just the confidence aspect, but really to look at conflict as something which is inevitable and to give them tools. So we in Amdocs we do equip right from, in fact, we have courses that cater for various levels in the organization. To common employees, to your frontline leaders, your team leads, to your managers of managers of organizations. We have very specific tailored programs, tools to walk leaders through these situations, to equip them with um, tools and confidence to manage conflicts. Again, like I said, conflict is inevitable. You might as well get comfortable with the fact that you will have conflict. And how do you map this conflict? How do you deal with it? What are the tools that you could fall back on? We equipped all our leaders for this.
Thank you. Is there a particular thing that helps you, or for that matter, what would be your mantra for managers to stay confident in a crisis?
I'm Confidence can take many forms, Anirudh. So maybe I will deviate a bit here.
Sure.
Confidence, need not just be bravado in a situation. I would say confidence that, that you've dealt with such things in the past and you will deal with it, such similar things in the future. Confidence in the ability of your team, in the skill set of your team, confidence in the ability, in your ability to network, seek support from people, uh, collaborate with others. So even if you don't have the answers, be authentic, seek inputs, ask your stakeholders, seek out people that you think would have answers. Have confidence in your ability to figure it out, even if you don't have the answers right now. So, my mantra is what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So, if you've survived, a crisis in the past, um, you have a sort of a go to method to deal with it. Go to the experts, seek inputs from your team, ask others you who you think are capable enough and whose advice you value. Um, Seek from a wider forum. These days, you can even put out your queries, your dilemmas, if it's not confidential. You can put it out to the wider cyber network and seek inputs. The world is so much more open than it ever was. Um, I think the only thing I would say should give you confidence is that you survived so far, and in all likelihood, you will survive in the future. So just keep things in perspective. Be humble and be authentic. If you don't know, you don't know. Seek it from the people that you think will have the answers. Be authentic, be brave in knowing that this too shall pass, and find the best possible solution. Equip yourself with problem solving techniques, like prepare for trouble before trouble comes.
Perhaps I don't know
So
whether it's a
many
bit of,
answers there.
but yeah, no, true. But maybe it's because of that army training. Because a couple of times during this conversation, you've spoken about prepare in advance, be
Yes,
prepared.
for
So
sure.
I think,
Yes.
and one of the things that we do from time to time, lest the audience feels ignored, is to look at what the audience is saying. And high
Yeah.
praise coming your way from a lady who calls herself by the name of Shruti. And I'll just read out verbatim what it says. It says, Sonal, very insightful and profound points. Thanks for sharing and always inspiring us all. There is always much to learn and imbibe from your talks. I
Thank you,
think that's quite
Shruti. You've been very kind.
that's really quite wonderful. And I'll just take one more for the moment because other so that I'm not accused of being partial to one particular comment that I pulled out. So this
Yeah.
one comes from I'm presuming someone who goes by the name of Abir. Can you share a personal challenge that you faced in your career as a leader, and what skills helped you overcome it?
It's an interesting question, Abir. I really like it. Um, I think one of my toughest challenge has been to work with someone in the past who I just did not see eye to eye on anything. Not a single thing that we could agree upon. Um, and I took that as a personal learning, a personal challenge for me. I wondered how could I work with somebody that we couldn't even agree probably on whether to have tea or coffee. It was Sabir. What I did is, instead of making it personal, what I did is um, I really tried to hear what this person was saying, like what was not just the way they were saying it or the way that they were packaging it, but really what was this message. And most of the times, I asked myself that if this message did not come from this person, but it came from someone I really loved, I really admired and adored, um, would my reaction be the same? Am I letting my bias towards this person, if I've already formed a judgment about this person, am I letting it color the objective value of what this person is saying? So I took dealing with the person, working with the person, as a personal challenge. And every time that I was prickly about something that was said, or something that I thought was that could hit me personally, I kind of imagined my mother or my brother saying the same thing. And I thought to myself, would my reaction be the same? Is there any truth in what this person is saying? Even if I don't like the way it is being said. Um, and I must tell you that I developed a really, really good working relationship, and it helped my confidence that I can probably work with anyone in this world. Of course, given certain values that need to align. But if I could work with this person, I could work with anybody. So I hope I answered you, Abir.
I'm sure you have. What I heard you say is first, you know, avoid the judgment and,
Yeah.
try and think as though if the same question had been asked from someone who you knew or who was dear to you,
Oh, I admire
then
it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, would you have reacted any differently? And then
Correct.
probably approach
Yeah.
it. So thank you very much for that. Coming to the next question, you said somewhere that we are all human beings, which of course we are, and therefore you also mentioned that emotions is something that we are often taught. It's a soft feeling.
Yeah.
It's something that we should avoid uh,
Yeah.
in organizations. So, in your opinion, therefore, do emotions play a role in difficult situations? And if
For
so,
sure.
how have you dealt with them?
For sure. Anirudh, we've grown up we've grown up being conditioned to believe that emotions have no role to play in a professional setup, as if people could be divided into two, where you bring a certain rational part of yourself and you leave your emotions at the door when you enter work. um, and we know that that's not true. Human beings are really a composite complex of all that we feel, all that we think. And I think in difficult situations, you can harness your emotions to get the best out of that situation. Um, for instance, even in very, very difficult life or death situations that one faces, it's how you align and how you see. If there is fear, how do you channelize your fear? If there is anger, how do you channelize your anger? um, I think it's really silly of us to believe that we don't let our emotions affect us. I think they affect us. The first thing to do is be aware of what you're feeling at the moment, right? And once you're aware that this is what you're feeling, try to see where is it coming from. Like, what is your need that is being met or not being met? If you're super ecstatic, you're happy about someone praising you, um, just understand that it's probably meeting some need that you have of praise, of respect. Similarly, if there is something that's triggering anger in you, right, acknowledge that, okay, I am angry at the moment, and where is that coming from? Where it's some need of yours is not being met, either need to be respected, need to be heard, need to, whatever is your need at the moment that's not being met. um, if you acknowledge that, you can harness all the energy that your emotion brings into really resolving what the situation demands from you. You hear of people who walk into trouble, who walk into situations where they know there is danger or it's going to be a tough situation. You see really great leaders walk into situations where they know that they're going to face conflict, where probably what they have to say is going to be very unpopular. But many of the great leaders really walk in expecting trouble. What motivates them to step in? They know it's going to be stressful. They know they're going to be, probably people are going to get personal with them. um, you have soldiers who walk into the face of imminent danger. It's not that they don't have emotions, they harness their emotions into addressing the situation at hand.
So you're
So
talking a lot about controlling the mind, uh, you know,
I'm talking
or
about
at
being
least
aware, at
being
least
aware.
being
Okay.
aware, because controlling the mind is a very, it's a huge thing. I would say it starts with awareness. Uh, Many a times, I conduct sessions on compassionate communication or non-violent communication, and if I ask people to distinguish or just identify a feeling, you see that we have a very small vocabulary to address our feelings. And most of the times, we hide our feeling with a thought, like we've already processed and judged it. And instead of saying that you're angry, you will give it a thought. You will cloak it, you will mask it as a thought and share it instead of addressing and saying, yes, I'm angry because of so and so. Um, so I think it starts with awareness, and it starts with giving each other the tools to be able to acknowledge anger, to acknowledge, difficult emotions, and then getting past it.
Wonderful. Just wanted to, close loop. Abir, whose questions you answered, he's come back and actually said amazing advice. So
Thank you, Abir.
that should make you feel good.
Yeah. I, I just shared what really it was one of my biggest challenges. And thank you for that question, Abir.
You're welcome. So here's another question, and this is extremely relevant for what we do. Because we work with women, we work in hoping to create a social impact. Is it good taking a break in a career when required? And how will it start, or how can one start to rejoin? The question perhaps not so clear, but my understanding of what is being asked is it good to take a career break, and having done so, how does one rejoin the workforce? In a sense, that's what it appears to be.
All right. Um, it's taking a break is not just for women, for men too. If it depends on the situation that you are in life, okay, we should really get rid of all the molds that we have. These ideas that we carry that we can't take a break. Listen, if you can afford it and if you want it, take a break, take many breaks. Okay, no longer is the world set on those set rules that you can do this, you can't do this. If you want a break, if you need a break, if you can afford a break, take a break, right? I've transitioned across careers. I've hopped from the army to a startup, from startup to corporate. I took a break in the times where work from anywhere wasn't a reality, and I upskilled myself during that time. Worked with. I did the things that I wanted to do. I really haven't followed the set path in life, and I advise everybody. Life is so short, so much to do, so little time. Don't bother about what are the rules, okay? And you and I and everybody else, we're the ones who make the rules. Take a break, men, women, everybody. If you need a break, if you want a break for whatever reason, for whatever milestone you are in your life's path, take it. If you can afford it, take it. If you can't, work till you can afford it and then take a break. But take a break. There's no rule in any rule book that says you can't. A lot of organizations are welcoming women. They've opened their doors, they're opening their arms to seek people who are coming back from a sabbatical in their career for whatever reason that it may have been, however long it may have been. In fact, Amdocs, encourages. We actively seek out women who've moved on from Amdocs, or we actively encourage women in the market who would like to join Amdocs, who've been on breaks. We do not consider that a disadvantage under any circumstances. And like I said, life is too short to live by rules. Make your own
Thank
rules.
Thank you very much. Here comes another question from the audience, and this one I suspect is it's from a lady called Ruchi Shah, and let me just read out what she said. It says, "How have you defined your accessibility protocol, and what have been the challenges in adhering to that protocol as the deadlines approach?" And I guess this is coming from a situation where you said, be in the listening mode, be as accommodative, right? Hear the other
Yeah.
person out.
Yeah.
So I think she's saying, What's been, should you be accessible all the time? And if so, what's your accessibility protocol? And, how do you deal with it as deadlines approach?
Ruchi, good question. And as you can possibly see, I don't really adhere much to rules, so I don't have an accessibility protocol. I stay accessible and approachable at all times, to my family, to my people. Um, as you see, as I'm giving this interview, my dogs are in the background going crazy with a cat entering our lawn. Um, but I understand that when you are under time pressure, when you have faced deadlines, and you're trying to resolve issues, what I do is I place my cards on the table and I tell them that, listen, I really want this to work out. I really want to hear you, and this is what's happening at my end. What's causing me to be a little anxious is that I need to deliver this by so and so deadline at any cost, and I would really like your help. So do you think we can put a time limit of so and so, so and so, so and so? I take their buy-in for my deadlines. uh, I'm more consultative in nature, even when I have to build my terms of reference, that I cannot give beyond this time. Or when I step into a conversation, Ruchi, I put my parameters right in the beginning. I say I have 30 minutes today that I'm dedicating for this. Can we look at this together and see if we can do this at so and so time? And if we can't, I try to move. I'm a stickler for honoring time. So if I say I have 30 minutes, I really will put 30 minutes. If need be, I will schedule, I will stretch myself or I will stretch others, but I will deliver no matter what the cost. So I don't know, Rochi, if I answered you well, but I'm accessible 24/7, which is, I don't think it's a good thing to follow, but I am accessible. I'm accessible to my team and my family at all times. And I buy in their agreements for my deadlines.
Thank you for that. Here's another from a lady whose name is Archana. It says, when there's a conflict between team members, do we have to confront and clarify, or take the matters separately with each? What is a good option?
Archana, I am assuming that you would know both the parties well. There is no one particular rule to follow. There are times where I have spoken to both people separately, simply because the tempers have been flying so high that there was danger of permanent damage to the relationship. And when I could hear both of them, get them to some sort of an understanding about what is a common working ground that we want to work at, then I've brought them together. There have been times where I really have great confidence in the maturity of both the people involved. Sometimes I just tell them, go out there, talk to each other, and then come back to me. So it depends on the maturity of the people, and how well you know them. Also, a little bit on your personality. What is what is your risk appetite? Are you okay with them going? How involved and how egalitarian are you? How consultative are you with them? So a little bit depends on your personality, and it depends on the people who are in conflict. There are times I've taken them together. There are times I've taken people separately and then brought them together.
Thank you so much. Ruchi has also thanked you, so I should point that out to you as well, Sonal.
Thank you,
I'm now
Ruchi.
conscious of the time. We are already at the 45th minute, so I'll try and wrap this up in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and therefore the last two, three questions.
Mhm.
A fairly obvious one: what's your leadership mantra? And I know in a way that you've sort of spoken about it in a variety of ways, but if you wanted to summarize, what's your leadership mantra?
I think um, to serve is my basic credo. I think it comes from deep within. Seva asmakam dharmam was also the motto of the in army when I served in one of the verticals. Seva asmakam dharmam, service is my creed. Um, I believe that a leader is one who serves the people that she's leading. So that is my mantra, Anirudh. That you belong, you serve a purpose, a cause, your people.
All right, that now brings me to the very final question on the show today. And this is, while, the question that I had for you was, purely for women, but someone from the audience, her name is Prachi, she's also added, would the answer be different for men? And the question is around the book that Anuranjita has written. Perhaps you might have read it. Can I have it all? Right. So, can a woman have it all, and can men have it all? I guess is the question that we conclude with. What's your take? Because I know there are different takes on this.
Yeah,
PepsiCo chairman Indra Nui had one take.
yeah,
Sudha Murthy has a different take. Anuranjita has a
yeah.
third take. What's your take?
One, I agree with with someone from the audience who wrote that would the question be different for men? So I consciously don't take questions meant only for women because I think one, I can't be the spokesperson for an entire gender. Two, I think the needs of both men and women are really very similar. We're all people. It depends on what your all is, Anirudh. I think uh, I think we all choose, and yes, I think you can have it all. I really
Okay.
believe in it. You just define what your all is, things that matter to you. So in a way, you prioritize the things that matter to you, and not because they matter to society and a rule book from the corporate or a rule book from anywhere else. You decide what matters to you, and then you go and have it all. What's stopping you? One life.
Wonderful. And you also believe that this equally applies to men and women, or to men and women
Of
alike.
course, of course, of course. Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much, Sonal. On that note, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you. On behalf
My
of
pleasure.
WITACE, let me thank you for one last time and hope you have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anirudh. It was and I enjoyed my time here. And I want to thank the people who joined in and who asked these thought-provoking questions. An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. We'll be in touch.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.